Hi everyone! Welcome to our first live stream. I'm Sumrine, the Community Manager here at MATRIX Labs.
And I'm Carlos, a software developer here at MATRIX Labs.
Today we'll be going over how to set up your MATRIX device, and at the end we'll have a little Q&A. I'll pass it off to Carlos from here.
Alright, so let's get started. So if you can give me a little overhead view. Alright, so right here we have all the pieces you need to get started with your MATRIX device. So to list it all off, we have our MATRIX Creator and MATRIX Voice, the Raspberry Pi, a micro SD card reader, and a micro SD card, a USB mouse and keyboard, the power supply for the Raspberry Pi, the HDMI cable connected to a monitor that's over there. And to get started, what you're going to want to do is grab your Raspberry Pi and your MATRIX device. So for this one, we'll be using the MATRIX Creator, but you can also use a voice to follow along. So snap that in like that, and then you're going to want to put that to the side, and we'll get to that later. The first step where you're going to want to follow is to grab the micro SD card reader and insert your micro SD card. So once that's there, you're going to want to plug that into your computer, and then we'll move on from there. For the tutorial, we'll be showing you how to do this on Windows 10, but if you're a Linux or Mac user, you can also follow along. For Windows 7 and 8 users, you're gonna have to do a slightly different step, but we'll get to that in a bit. So right here we have our Windows 10 environment. So first thing you want to do is open up your preferred browser. So just use any of your choice, and it could be anything you want. So for here, we'll just use Chrome. Load that up. So all the software is going to be in the description of the video, and you can just follow along as you like. So for the first part, you're going to want to download Etcher.io. So what this software does is that you can flash micro SD cards easy without even thinking about it. So for right now, we'll download it here. So just wait a couple seconds for that. Got that. Let's see. And you're also going to want to download the Raspbian Stretch operating system. So this is the OS that's going to run on the Raspberry Pi. So Raspbian Stretch. See right here, go to the downloads. Once you get to the downloads page, you'll have two versions to select from. You can either choose the desktop or light version. For this episode, we'll be using the desktop version. So I suggest you follow along with that one. Just download it as well. I'm going to cancel the download though, because we have it downloaded offhand. So just to see how that looks. So once you have both the Raspbian Stretch desktop version downloaded and Etcher, you're going to want to install Etcher. Make sure that's going through. It'll take like a good minute. Then once that's set up, you're going to be prompted to, it'll automatically read your micro SD card inserted to the computer, and it's also going to allow you to drag and drop the Raspbian Stretch OS. So right here on the left, I have it loaded, ready to go. So right there, Stretch opened up. First thing you're going to notice is on the center, right around here, you're going to notice the micro SD card is loaded. So all you have to do is grab the Raspbian Stretch desktop image, drag and drop, and then just hit flash. Yes. There we go. So now, this is going to take generally like 15 minutes. We already have an SD card prepared, so I can just cancel it right here, but just to show you how the menu looks. So yes, quit. And once it's done, you can just eject your USB. It's fine. Once Etcher is done flashing your micro SD card, you can just pull it out and you're good to go. So right now, we're going to switch back over and go over to the Pi vision. So right here, once it's done flashing, just eject. And then what you're going to want to do is get your Raspberry Pi and insert the micro SD card with Raspbian Stretch now flashed on it. Now that it's flashed, you're going to also want to attach the monitor to your Raspberry Pi before turning it on. This just makes sure that this is just to ensure that the screen is rendered properly. And then you can insert the power supply, and your Raspberry Pi is on. So now with that on, we are going to go into the Raspbian Stretch desktop view to show you what to do from there to make sure you connect to Wi-Fi and to enable SSHing. So let me set that up right here. Okay, so this is what you would see once you load up the Raspberry Pi on the desktop. So it's pretty simple, straightforward. What you're going to want to do initially is right here on the top right, you're going to want to hit the Wi-Fi and connect to yours. This is necessary for all the steps we're going to do. So right here, we connect it to our Wi-Fi. This was done beforehand. And then what you want to also do is enable SSHing. This is to allow you to remotely log into the Raspberry Pi from a different computer. So on the top left, you're going to hit the Raspberry Pi icon, go to Preferences, and Raspberry Pi Configuration. Once you hit Raspberry Pi Configuration, you're going to want to go over to Interfaces and look for the SSH section. You're going to make sure that's enabled. If it's disabled, just hit Enabled and you should be good to go. Hit OK. And one more step. Yeah, we have the Wi-Fi, SSH. Anything else? All right.
I think that's good.
Yeah, and to SSH, you're also going to need the IP address of your Raspberry Pi.
Right.
So to get that, it's super simple. There's a script on the Raspberry Pi that allows you to output the IP address. So open up the terminal with that little icon on the top left right there, and you're going to want to hit sudo /etc/rc.local. You hit enter, and your IP address will be printed out. So now you're going to want to record those numbers for what we're going to do next. So right now, just can you get out of it? No, just have it go back over.
Sorry.
Okay, so let me load up back to our Windows view. Okay, and you can go back to the Windows. Okay, so now that we're no, it's fine. So now that we're back on our Windows view, what you're going to want to do is go to the search and open up PowerShell. Now, if you're on Mac or Linux, you can follow along as well. To show you the same thing, you can just pop on here, type in terminal on Mac or Linux, hit enter, and you could follow along with the same commands. So to move back to the Windows 10, right here, let me zoom in to make it a bit easier. Right there. So what you want to do is type in SSH Pi at 192.168, the IP address of your Pi. Type in yes if it asks you to verify this is what you want to connect to. And then the password, the default password for the Raspberry Pi is Raspberry, so that's RASPBERRY. And if you're prompted for the username, which you can see right here, it's Pi, P-I. So hit enter. Let's make sure. Oh, see? Ah, there we go. Okay, let me just zoom out a little bit and fix that here. Okay, so right here, this is the terminal of the Raspberry Pi. So all the commands we do here are running on the Raspberry Pi. So you could also do this just to show you on the Mac side, you can do the exact same thing. So Pi at 192.168.1.218. The exact same commands. You can do this from any computer that supports SSH. Now, this is for Windows 10. For Windows 8 and 7 users, you're going to have to download a software called PuTTY. And this is essentially a UI to let you SSH into another device. So just to show you the website, PuTTY download. Right here. So this logo right here. It's two computers with a lightning bolt in the middle. Just go to download. You're going to have to look up a little bit on how to set that up yourself, but it's relatively straightforward and shouldn't be too different once you get the hang of it. So back into here. So now that you're logged into the Raspberry Pi, we can actually look at installing the MATRIX software that you need. Okay, so what you're going to do is open your web browser and head over to docs.matrix.1. And once inside, we're going to go over exactly what we're installing. So initially, when you go into the docs, you're going to be greeted by the MATRIX ecosystem overview. From there, we'll just explain our objective to make hardware easy to people that program, because generally setting up hardware and programming at the same time takes a lot of setup, a lot of requirement, and our goal is to simplify that as much as we can. So to start off, we have 3 different programming layers for you to use. The highest level layer is called MATRIX Open System, or MOS for short. And from there on, it's a IoT layer that requires internet connection, but you have access to our dashboard and other features that we're allowing users to access. Below that is another layer called MATRIX Core, which is an abstraction layer that allows you to program in over 40 different languages. It does this through Google's protocol buffers. However, we have our examples and already compiled libraries in JavaScript and Python if you use those languages and you'd like to follow along there. And for this video, we'll be showing you how to install Matrix HAL. This is the lowest level layer we provide, and you can program this in C++, which is pretty similar to Arduino programming if you have an experience with that. So from there on, just read more about Matrix HAL, and you move in. So immediately you'll notice all of the overview of the HAL website, and just over there, just hit getting started. And for beginners that are just starting with this, we recommend installing all of the HAL dependencies from the package. Hit package, and from there it's as simple as just copying the commands and just inserting them into your Pi. So right here, just hit on the top right of the little coding, you can just hit copied, and then go back into your Pi, and should be able to paste. Let me see it real quick. There you go. So one at a time, just copy and paste each section of these code blocks, and in no time your device should be set up and ready to go. So right now we did the first block, let's do the second block right now. This is just updating all the Raspberry Pi packages, and as well as adding all the Matrix packages to the list of known packages for the Raspberry Pi. So this allows us to install everything we need. So now we've already updated the Raspberry Pi, and this is normally about like a 15-minute process. If any errors do occur, we recommend updating and upgrading again, and rerunning any commands that you see that aren't completely installed. So right there, let's install the Matrix packages. Right there. And then the last command would be to reboot. And once you reboot, you're going to be kicked out of your session, and wait about a minute or two for it to fully reboot, and you can log back into the Raspberry Pi. So with all that, Matrix HAL is now installed on the Raspberry Pi. So what you're going to also want to do, once we left the desktop view for the Raspberry Pi, you can disconnect the HDMI monitor. You're not going to need the visual desktop view, but you're free to use it if you want. So let's see if the Raspberry Pi came back. Yep, back online. All right. Now, let me just adjust some stuff here, and then let's look over right there. You see the Raspberry Pi? Okay. So right now what you should have is just the Raspberry Pi with a power supply, and it should just be running here. The Matrix voice would also work as this. We're just having it here, so you can use both, but this process works for either one. So now, once you have the dependencies installed, we're going to test if everything worked. So if you scroll down to next steps, you can see your how to compile a Hello World program. So right here, again, simple as just copying the commands. We're just going to make a simple project directory. We just paste that in there. Copy. And little technical issues here. Let me just ensure that this is. Hold on. Give me 1 second.
You want to try Control V? Does that work?
Good. I have to right click for PowerShell. Also for copying and pasting in PowerShell, at least for pasting, you're going to want to right click. So you normally should work. There we go. Little buggy there. And what this does, the first command is it creates a directory for you. So once you have that, just you're gonna want to create a sample app called the Hello World or app.cpp, which is short for C++. So right now, just type in nano and then app.cpp. So just to show you what that looks like. Right there. Pretty straightforward. Once you hit enter, you'll be inside a terminal editor. So after that, you're just gonna scroll down here to the app.cpp. So this entire code block is the hello world for HAL. So you can just copy that. And then once it's copied, go back into your terminal and right click to paste everything there. Once everything's pasted, you're gonna wanna hold Control and X and then press enter. Oh, sorry. You want to hold Control X, press Y, and then enter. So now, to show everything, you can type in ls. It'll list everything in this directory we're in, and we're inside the Matrix HAL directory. So right there, we've already made app.cpp, so you can see that right there. And all that's left is to run it, and if it works, you're good to go. So just type in if you scroll down a little past here, let's give it a good second. Hold on. There we go. You're going to see a G++ command. So what this is going to do is it's going to compile the program we just made. So just type that in there. Give it a second. All right, now it's compiled. If you type in ls, you'll see that now there's the app.cpp file we made and the compiled app file. So all that's left to do is type in /app, and from there you can see the matrix creator is doing a rainbow hello world from HAL. Okay. And that should be it. You can follow along for everything should be straightforward for you to follow, whether you're using MOS, Core, or HAL. And that's it. That's all you need. We have our entire, from the Matrix HAL side and all the entire navigation on the left side. You can see all we have getting started, all the references to our libraries, as well as links to our community. So you can go there and ask for any kind of help you need. And that would be, that's all you need to know.
Yeah, so thank you, Carlos. That was great. So yeah, that was, if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the YouTube, the live chat. But for now, we'll be just talking while we wait for your questions. I guess I could kind of tell you about what our plans are for future live streams. So after this one, we plan on having, like, you know, getting started with HAL. Carlos showed you the first example, and we like go over like a little bit more, and then maybe also go over Core, and then just do like different kinds of projects. So yeah, so I guess
just to end it off, next week we'll be releasing a new projects tab on our community website, and if you can just switch over to my computer, I can show it to you. So just to show you the community page, you can just go to your browser and type in community.matrix.1, and from there you'll be redirected to our Matrix community page. And right here you can post any kind of general questions or help in troubleshooting that you might need or might encounter. And next week we're adding a projects tab for you to post your own projects if you want to add in just to show what you've done or to let people copy what you've made. And we'll also be posting our own projects, so you can follow along with that as well. And we'll be coming with the coming weeks. We'll be pumping out a lot more content for what you can do with your Matrix device, as well as how to use our libraries and how to integrate it with different services, such as local voice assistant. We already have guides on Alexa, Google Assistant, and we'll be sure to replicate it here so you know exactly what to do.
Yeah, so I guess we'll take questions.
Yep.
All right, so looks like we don't have any questions, but that's okay. Yeah, so always feel free to post on our community, and yeah, so
that's it.
That's about it. Yeah.
Well,
all right. Cool. Wait, it seems like there might be a question.
let's see.
Can you explain the differences between MOS, HAL, and Core, and why I might want to use one over the other?
Okay, yeah, that's an easy one to go for. So let's go to the documentation right now, and just to give you a brief overview of all the layers. So Matrix OS, you'd want to use that layer more for beginners. What Matrix OS allows for, even though it requires an internet connection, you're allowed to do in one line. You can edit all the LEDs on the Matrix device, and requires very little programming knowledge to build on. So very good for just beginners and for tinkering around with IoT. And if you scroll down, Matrix Core. Now for Matrix Core, this doesn't depend on our services. So that means you're completely offline. You can do whatever you want, and you can also program in JavaScript or Python, as well as the other languages that support Google's protocol buffers. And what this allows for is, with your own language, integrate whatever kind of service, anything you want to make with your preferred language of JavaScript or Python. And for Matrix HAL, which is in C++, that's if you want to be closer to the hardware. And if you're comfortable with Arduinos, this should be a fantastic place to start. And in general, it's really up to personal preference on what you want to use. Each of these our goal is to make each of these as powerful as the one above and below it. And what we want it to come down to is a personal preference.
All right, yeah. It looks like we have one more question. Where can I find guides and projects that you have made? Great question. Right now, they're on Hackster. So yeah, Carlos will navigate to Hackster. It's got like we have our own page there. Maybe just do. All right. Well. Interesting. I thought you could see it without having to log in. Either way, it's hackster.io/matrixlabs.
Right
there we go. Perfect.
So right here, if you look in, we have you can see all the projects we already have, as well as tutorials on how to set each of these up. So most recently, we added how to set up the IR receiver and emitter from the Matrix Creator on how to control your TV. So say you enable that, you can build on that and combine it with any kind of service you want, whether you want to make an IoT remote, anything like that. And that's what our goal here for the projects are, on how to set up specific projects and how to build on them after. So next to it we have Snips AI, which is an offline voice assistant that allows you to make your own apps. And so, we also have the Google Assistant and Alexa guides on here as well. And we've also described whether it's compatible with the Matrix Voice and Matrix Creator. So if you have either one, you will find a project you can follow.
Yeah, all right.
See? All right. All right, that looks like all the comments we have for this week.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, so we'll see you on our next live stream, hopefully 2 weeks from now.
We'll be going over Matrix HAL and the just base of how to use the library.
Yeah, all right.
That's it. All right.
All right.
See you in 2 weeks. Bye.